Good morning, good morning, good morning. The time for convening has arrived. The Senate will come to order. At this time, I will ask all unauthorized personnel to exit the chamber. Chair recognizes a senator from the 28th. The reading of the journal.
Good morning, Mr. President. We got a beautiful day here in the Georgia State Senate. In fact, on this day in 1978, which you would have been about -2, the proceedings of the U.S. Senate were broadcast on radio for the very first time. That's the year I was born, by the way. We got a great lineup of pages today. All rock stars. Out of Gainesville, Georgia, the poultry capital of the world, we got Avery Williams. And we got two lovely young ladies out of Toccoa, Georgia, Sarah Childs and Blair Huddleston. Out of Hiram, we have Jamarcus Hill. Out of Townsend, we have Brandon Akery. Out of Milledgeville, we have Natalie Jadal. This one you may be aware of. She's from your hometown of Jackson. In fact, she may be from your home. Stella Jones, the daughter of our Lieutenant Governor and fearless leader. Another one out of Jackson, we have Lucy Sowell. Out of Jefferson, we have Noah White. Out of Milledgeville, we have Emerson Yearwood. Out of Lizella, we have Daniel Brill. Out of Decatur, we have Malia Wright. Out of Johns Creek, we have Idan Karana. And also out of Johns Creek, we have we have Zara Decay. Y'all give our pages a big round of applause. Right. We look forward to working with y'all today. Just remember you're on the clock on taxpayer dollars, so work hard. Work hard. Mr. President, the journal has been read and found to be correct.
All right. Senator, I got eyes and ears everywhere, so I'm going to find out if y'all treating those pages nice today or not, so y'all be mindful. Is there objection to the dispensing of the reading of the journal? Chair hears none. The reading of the journal is dispensed with. Is there objection to the confirmation of the journal? Chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. All senators who have bills and resolutions to introduce, please bring them to the Secretary's desk at this time. First reading and references of Senate bills and resolutions. Secretary?
Senate Bill 464 by Senator Dixon of the 45th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 17 of Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the OCGA relating to teachers and other school personnel.
Education and Youth.
Senate Bill 465 by Senator Goodman of the 8th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 5 of Title 16 of the OCGA relating to homicide.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 466 by Senator Hatcher of the 50th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 3 of Chapter 12 of Title 16 of the OCGA relating to
Judiciary.
Senate Resolution 570 by Senator Robertson of the 29th and others, a resolution creating the Senate supporting safety and welfare.
Public safety.
That completes the order, Mr. President.
First reading references of House bills.
House Bill 158 by Representative Mitchell of the 88th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 6 of
Judiciary.
Title. House Bill 883 by Representative Seebach of the 34th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 5014.
State and local government general.
House Bill 915 by Representative Burns of the 159th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act making and providing appropriations for the state fiscal year.
Appropriations.
House Bill 1035 by Representative Cooper of the 45th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 3 of Chapter 13 of Title 16 of the OCGA relating to dangerous drugs so as to expend
Health and Human Services.
That completes the order, Mr. President.
Secretary will read reports of standing committees.
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Agriculture and Consumer Affairs has had under consideration the following legislation, has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation that Senate Resolution 470 do pass, Senate Bill 436 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Goodman of the 8th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Economic Development and Tourism has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation that Senate Bill 430 do pass and Senate Bill 171 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Beach of the 21st District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Government Oversight has had under consideration the following legislation and instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation that Senate Bill 341 do pass by substitute, Senate Bill 381 do pass by substitute, and House Bill 269 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Harbin of the 16th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services has had under consideration the following legislation and instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation that House Bill 502 do pass and House Bill 181 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Watson of the 1st District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Public Safety has had under consideration the following legislation and instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation that Senate Bill 443 do pass, Senate Bill 10 do pass by substitute, Senate Bill 400 do pass by substitute, Senate Bill 402 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Alvarez of the 56th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Rules has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation that pursuant to Senate Rule 2-1.10b of the Committee on Rules has referred the following legislation from the general calendar. Senate Resolution 474 to the Committee on Rules. Respectfully submitted, Senator Brass of the 28th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Rules has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation that Senate Resolution 482 do pass, Senate Resolution 487 do pass, and Senate Resolution 543 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Brass of the 28th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on SLOGO has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation that House Bill 709 do pass, House Bill 950 do pass, House Bill 958 do pass, House Bill 1007 do pass, House Bill 1008 do pass, House Bill 1003 do pass, House Bill 1004 do pass, and House Bill 1068 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Ginn of the 47th District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Secretary will read bills and resolutions for the second time.
Senate Bill 232 by Senator Kennedy of the 18th and others. Courts provide for probate court fees. Funding of the State Children's Trust Fund. Requirement of permit for conduct of fireworks display. Amend. Senate Bill 393 by Senator Dixon of the 45th and others. County Boards of Health. Requirements to qualify as a soil classifier to conduct soil investigations and prepare soil reports. Change. Senate Bill 411 by Senator Williams of the 25th and others. Elections. Preferential treatment during advanced voting to voters accompanied by children 5 years of age and under. Provide. Senate Bill 424 by Senator Robinson of the 29th and others. West Georgia Judicial Circuit. Create. Senate Bill 426 by Senator Tillery of the 19th and others. Motor vehicles and traffic. Requirements for joining of a motor vehicle character and motor carrier's insurer to cause of action. Revise. Senate Resolution 454 by Senator Williams of the 25th and others. Right to register to vote. Clarify. House Bill 206 by Representative Sains of the 180th and others. Local government creation of commercial property assessed conservation, energy, and resiliency development authorities. Provide. House Bill 434 by Representative Hawkins of the 27th and others. Georgia Composite Medical Board licensing for radiologist assistants. Provide. That completes the order, Mr. President.
It is now time for the morning roll call. Are there any motions to excuse? Senator from the 56. Senator from the 66 is not there. Senator from the 33rd.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, y'all. I ask for unanimous consent that you excuse the senators from the 7th, the 38th, the 2nd. Is that for business outside the Capitol?
The 7th, the 38th, and the 34, maybe?
Second.
2nd and the 34?
What?
All right. Okay, you can come back to
I'm
me,
sorry,
Senator.
the 7th, the 2nd, and the 38th.
All right. Without objection, the 7th, the 38th, and the 2nd will be excused. Recognize the senator from the 45th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senators from the 27th and the 48th.
Without objection, the senators from the 27th and 48th. Are there any other motions to excuse? All right. Secretary will call the roll. Senators, signify your presence by voting the yea switch. Secretary will unlock the machine.
have a heart attack to get that ride.
You got one, didn't you?
I did.
It is now time for the morning devotion. All senators, please take your seats and cease all conversation. I would ask the doorkeeper to secure the chamber at this time. I now recognize our good senator from Colquitt County, senator from the 11th. My mind went blank for a second, but he's got a special family here today, our pastor of the day, and he will lead us now in our Pledge of Allegiance and introduce our pastor of the day. Senator?
Thank you. Please join me in pledge of flags. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Georgia flag. Pledge allegiance to the Georgia flag, principles for which it stands, wisdom, justice, moderation, courage. Well, thank you, Mr. President. Members, it's good to be here. I think there's no better way to start the day than with a devotion. And it's my honor today to bring my pastor, the Reverend Matt Peak. He's originally from Thomaston, Georgia. He went to LaGrange College and attended New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary, and actually started as a youth minister in LaGrange, and then came to Moultrie in 2009 to Moultrie First Baptist Church to serve as our youth pastor there, and then later was called to serve as a pastor in Pelham, Georgia, at the First Baptist Church there. But we recruited him back in 2020 and brought him back to Moultrie First Baptist Church, and he now serves as our senior pastor and has since 2020. But Matt is gifted at sharing the gospel and ministering to not only our church members, but our community as well. And we've seen tremendous growth in our church, and we're excited about what he's doing and what God is doing in our community and in Colquitt County. But Matt is joined today by his wife and 6 children. So over here in the corner, we have Leanna, his wife, and I'm going to see if I can do it without looking at the list. But we've got Maddie Claire, John David, Ellie, Ruthie, and Timothy and Daniel, which are the twins. Timothy and Daniel are twins. So I got it done. So, and I'm not sure what Matt's going to share, but I will say these twins over here are truly a miracle from God. They were diagnosed with twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome, but a life-saving surgery was performed, and the babies were delivered at 26 weeks. You know, a lot happened in between all of that, but this family showed our church and our community that you never give up, and they proved to us that God never gives up. So it's my honor to introduce my pastor, the Reverend Matt Peak.
Well, good morning. I'd like to thank Senator Watson and Lieutenant Governor Jones for the opportunity to come and share with you today in the Senate. Thank you for your graciousness in having me, and Thank you for the hard work that you do each and every day. We pray for you and are grateful for the way that you serve this great state of Georgia. As you heard Senator Watson say, my claim to fame is that I'm the father of 6 children. We are that family. Let's just say that the soil isn't the only thing that's fertile down in South Georgia. You know, as a family of 8, we stand out. And on the way up, we drove up here in a 12-passenger van. We could barely all squeeze in one hotel room. That's just the way things work. As an example of this, one time my wife went to the local grocery store with our family. A sweet little lady came up and approached her and asked her what daycare she was with. And so that is our reputation there in town. So we're that family. But you know, I'm thankful. I'm thankful to be that family. And as Senator Watson shared, the Lord has done great things for that family. And I'd like to share just a few moments today about what he's done for us and what he can do for you as well. Some of you may be familiar with the old hymn, Trust and Obey. The chorus of that hymn goes like this: trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. Last year, beginning of 2023, my wife and I felt the Lord calling us to do just that, to trust and obey, particularly in the area of our family. So we did, and not long after that, my wife became pregnant. We thought it was with our 5th, and as it turns out, we were blessed with a matching set. Twin boys, Daniel and Timothy, who are with me today. When we found out that we were expecting, my wife cried, and I laughed. And then my wife cried that I laughed. That was just the way it worked in that ultrasound room that day. But we were excited, we were scared, we had all the emotions wrapped up in that moment. But little did we know what was in store for us over the next few weeks. Senator Watson mentioned to you a moment ago that around 20 weeks of pregnancy, my wife was diagnosed, or twins were diagnosed with a condition called twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. What that means is they share their placenta, and one of them was pushing all of the amniotic fluid to the other twin. So basically, Daniel was swimming in the size of a basketball, and Timothy was basically suffocating in shrink wrap. It was a helpless feeling to sit there and look on those ultrasound screens and see my boys struggling. It's a terminal illness if not dealt with, and we felt powerless to do anything about it. So there we sat in doctors' offices and hospital rooms, not knowing what to do. So we did the only thing we could do. We called out to the Lord, trust and obey. As it would turn out, even though there were no options that seemed to appear in front of us, the Lord, through a series of miracles, worked it out for my wife to be flown down to Tampa via emergency helicopter to have prenatal in utero surgery, which is an incredible thing. Now, the surgery was successful, and my boys were spared, and 24 hours later, believe it or not, we hopped in the van and we drove back up to Moultrie thinking that we were in the clear. As it would turn out, a few weeks later, our story would only get even more interesting. At 26 weeks, my wife went into labor, and in the early morning hours of July the 4th, our boys were brought into this world. I'm not being overly dramatic when I tell you I almost lost my wife. And I almost lost these 2 boys that you hear over here in the corner. At 2:30 in the morning, via emergency C-section, they were born because my wife's placenta had ruptured. She was bleeding out, and my boys were basically drowning in their mother's blood. It was an incredibly trying time for us. The boys, when they were delivered, Daniel, the first one, when he was born, he wasn't breathing. His heart was not beating. He required several minutes of chest compressions to keep him alive. Over the course of the next few minutes, they stabilized the boys, and they immediately hooked them up to tubes and wires and put them in boxes, and they were thrown into an ambulance and whisked away to Albany, about an hour from where we live, where they would spend the next 84 days in the NICU there at Phoebe Putney Hospital. 84 days of trusting and obeying. 84 days of not knowing what the day would hold, not knowing whether our boys would make it, not knowing when or if they would even get to come home. We had ups and we had downs, we had many close calls, but the Lord was faithful to us in that season. And today, you see over here in this corner, that family. These boys that God spared, that he worked a miracle in, and today we rejoice and we give him the praise and the glory for what he's done for us and for our family. Now, why do I share that story with you this morning? It's not just to shine a spotlight on us. We want to shine a spotlight on what God has done. We take every opportunity to share his miracle that he's worked for us, and we give him the glory for it. But secondly, I share this because I want to challenge you to do the same thing that the Lord called us to do. No, not to have twins, not to drive a 12-passenger van, but to trust and obey. Trust and obey. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, you have an incredibly massive responsibility in leading this state, making decisions, that are going to affect millions of people in this great state of Georgia. And you know what the temptation is? The temptation for you is the same as it is for me, to rely on ourselves, to make decisions based on our own wisdom, creativity, ingenuity, and skills. And if we're not careful, we begin to make those decisions on our own power rather than looking to the Lord, who is the source of all wisdom and strength. And I want to challenge you today to make the decision to trust and obey, to yield your agenda to His, to trust Him with every decision, whether great or small, and to obey Him in His call to walk forward in righteousness and in justice. Trust and obey. You know, the scriptures tell us in Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your path straight. There's two words that can sum those verses up: trust and obey. But did you hear the promise at the end of those verses? If we trust and obey, the Lord tells us He will make our paths straight. If you look to Him and trust and obey, He'll do that for you the same way that He has for me. When you hear these boys cry, it's a picture of a blessing that God has given to us as we trusted and obeyed Him. And I want to challenge you to do the same thing in your heart and in this hall, in every decision, every committee, every meeting, and every decision that you make in your life. Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. Would you stand as we pray this morning? Father, thank you for your word, and thank you for the opportunity to share it with the ladies and gentlemen of the Senate this morning. I thank you for each of them. I thank you for their hard work. Thank you, Lord, for their dedication in leading our state. I ask your blessings on them, Father. Would you protect them, give them health, give them wisdom, give them safety, stamina, everything that they need. But Father, more than anything, guide them. May they look to you. May they trust, Lord, in what you tell them. And God, may they obey what you tell them to do. We thank you, Father, and we look to you. And we ask all these things today in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
If I could have everybody's attention, please. We have always have our physicians, docs of the day, and we got a good one here today from Macon, Georgia. And I call on the pro tem to introduce our doc of the day. Senator?
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning. I want to introduce my friend, Dr. Richard Thomas, who is an orthopedic surgeon in Macon. He is going to be our doctor of the day. His undergraduate education was at Washington and Lee. His medical education was at the Medical College of Georgia in Augusta. He did a residency at the University of Virginia and a fellowship at Mississippi Sports Medicine Orthopedic Center. He currently works with Ortho Georgia, which is a premier orthopedic practice in Middle Georgia. I suspect many of y'all may have seen some of Richard's partners. He's actually taking care of me. He's taking care of my children. And as many of you know, my daughter Catherine, who is now a PA, when she did her clinical rotations while she was in school, she worked under Richard and the good folks there at Ortho Georgia. Richard Thomas is sought after for his skills as a surgeon, and so I'm very glad to introduce him to y'all. He's also an active member of our community and just an all-around good guy and a lot of fun to be with. So, Dr. Thomas, say a word if you'd like to.
Well, first of all, that testimonial was amazing from the pastor from Colquitt. But anyway, this is quite an honor to be here, and the senator said, I specialize in knees and shoulders, so I'll be in the medical aid station if anybody needs to get checked out. Anyway, it's an honor. I appreciate what all of you do in your service to Georgia. Thank you a lot. Have a good day.
All right, we always love to have special guests here in the Senate chambers, and we've got a good group of Lions Club international members from all over the state here at the Capitol. I ask that the Secretary read the caption.
Senate Resolution 554, a resolution by Senator Payne of the 54th and others, a resolution recognizing February 8, 2024 as Lions Day at the state capitol and for other purposes. Whereas the Lions of Georgia have a long and consistent record of service to the community in this state and have been recognized as one of the most dynamic and committed civic organizations in Georgia. Now therefore be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize February 8th, 2024 as Lions Day at the state capitol in honor of their many outstanding contributions and decades of service on behalf of the citizens of this state. That completes the order, Mr. President.
All right, is there objection to the adoption of the resolution? Chair hears none. The resolution is adopted. Everyone could give our senator from the 54th y'all's undivided attention, and he introduce and recognize our special guest today. Senator?
Thank you, Governor. Do we have any Lions members as senators? I hope you'll stand. And just to say thank you for what you do and being part of Georgia Lions. And also we may have some Lions in the balcony if they're there. Let us, if you'll stand, so we can give you a round of applause for what you've done. Friends, I bring a resolution today recognizes February 8th as Lions Day at the Capitol. I am a Georgian Lion and as a member of the Dalton Lions Club and remain proud to serve with an organization that truly reflects the call of service above self. The Lions of Georgia represent 200 Lions Clubs serving communities throughout the state. Vision, diabetes awareness, childhood cancer, hearing impairment, and other needs remain the main focus and attention of Georgia Lions and to address local needs of local people. It's my honor to introduce Mr. Dennis Chapman and to honor you.
Senator, Mr. President, distinguished senators of this wonderful state that I happen to have an opportunity to live in and reside all my life. Thank you for this opportunity on behalf of 4,200 plus Lions all over this great state and 1.4 million of us around the world in 200 plus countries. We're here to serve. We love to be in your communities, and we thank you for the service that you've given us. Those of you that are Lions, we appreciate your service. This is a great day. Please let me end by introducing to my right, our past International Director, Kimber Smith from Decatur, and to my left, our current Council Chair, who is over the whole state for the state of Georgia for Lions, Mr. Mark Anners from the Vidalia area, Belleville, Georgia. So thank you, Senators. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for your service. May God bless.
All right, good job, good job, good job. All right, we got some special guests from Perry, Georgia. We've got our state champion football team here today. Let's give these young men a round of applause. I was just telling them I got to see that game live and in person, and they handled Stockbridge pretty well that night. They got a good football team, got a good program, so I know they're proud. Secretary, read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 566 by Senator Walker of the 20th and others. A resolution congratulating the Perry High School Panthers football team for winning the 2023 GHSA Class 4A State Football Championship and for other purposes. Whereas excellent play, superior teamwork, and extraordinary resilience made this team a spectacular one to observe throughout the season, and as a fitting finale to its remarkable 2023 campaign, the team captured the first state football championship in program history. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body congratulate the Perry High School Panthers football team for winning the 2023 GHSA Class 4A State Football Championship and extend best wishes for their continued success. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Is there objection to the adoption of the resolution? Chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. I'd like to call on the senator from Perry, Georgia, senator from the 20th, to introduce our special guest.
Thank you, Governor. I couldn't be more proud to have the Perry Panthers football team here with us today. The whole community has rallied behind them and seen great success over the last years. Prior to Coach Smith coming to Perry High School, Perry had not even won a region championship since 1959. Since he came, they've won several region championships, but in the 70-year history of Perry Panther football, they had never won a state championship. And Coach Smith and his staff and Mr. Martin, the principal, and all the faculty and staff and students, they've just built a great culture of positive energy for the kids, and I think the coach is going to talk about that a little bit today. But after a 70-year drought, we're just so proud of them that they whipped up on Stockbridge. Where's the senator from the 10th? I hope he's witnessing this, and the senator from the 17th. But we're mighty, mighty proud of them. I have with me on the dais head coach Kevin Smith, Dr. Arthur Billings, the athletic director, Coulter Ginn, the quarterback, who is going to play at the University of Georgia for the Bulldogs. Go Dogs. I think Coach Smart visited Perry High a few weeks ago in his helicopter, which caused quite a stir. And then we have Tavares Simmons, the cornerback, and he's undecided still as to where he might be going next. But we're mighty proud of these young men, and more proud of not only proud of the athletic success they have, but the academic and character, academic success and the character that they have built in this team. So I'm going to turn it over to Coach Smith. He'll tell you a little bit about how he's changed the culture at Perry High School. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Walker. We're so gracious and humbled to be here to be recognized today, to sit in probably the biggest stage I've ever been in front of in my whole life. But just to tell you a little bit about our culture, to have a successful football program, one, you got to have good administration. You got to have good coaches and players. But the third thing that you have to have is you have to have good culture. And at Perry High School, we adopted a coffee bean culture. And I just want to tell you real briefly about what the coffee bean culture is. Damon West and John Gordon wrote a book called The Coffee Bean. And what makes the coffee bean story so powerful is that it saved Damon West's life. Damon West was a college football player, played at North Texas, grew up in a two-parent home, had everything going for him in his life, gets hooked on methamphetamines, loses everything. Him and a group of 11 other people start robbing people blind. So he goes to prison, and he gets sentenced to 65 years in the state penitentiary, okay? And so his mama tells him, says, you come back the man we raised or you don't come back at all. So Damon's at a rock bottom part, and he said, well, man, how am I going to go in there and make it in a maximum security? So older African-American man named Mr. Jackson, a lifelong criminal, befriended him. He said, Damon, he said, you got to imagine prison like a pot of boiling water. He said, there's three things in that pot of boiling water. There's a carrot, there's an egg, and there's a coffee bean. When you put that carrot inside that pot of boiling water, it's hard. But when you put it inside that pot of boiling water, the outside forces of that water makes that carrot soft. That means you're giving in. That means you're sad. That means you're getting tattoos. So you're not going to come back. So you don't want to be the carrot. When you put that egg inside that pot of boiling water, it's got a hard outer shell. But on the inside of that egg, it's real soft. But when you put that egg inside of that pot of boiling water, the forces of that water makes that egg on the inside harden. He said, you don't want to be the egg because that's meanness, hate. You become institutionalized. You're going to be in prison for the rest of your life. But the coffee bean, the smallest of the three things, when you put it in that pot of boiling water, it changes that water from water to coffee. It's the change agent. And you change from the inside out. You change the environment around you. So Damon goes in prison. He lives by the coffee bean. And he gets, a parole board comes in 8 years. Usually going to serve 15 years at least. They come in 8 years and say, Damon, we've never seen anybody have such a positive impact on a prison system. And he said, how did you do that? He said, well, I was just being a coffee bean. I changed the environment around me. They said, well, why should we let you release you today? So, well, I can stay in here and I can continue to make a change, or you can let me go out into the real world and share my story. This is a true story. And so they let him out. And Dabo Sweeney, coach at University of Clemson, let him come and speak to his team. And Coach Sweeney called John Gordon up, who is a renowned motivational speaker, book writer. Said, John, you need to get with Damon and you need to write this book called The Coffee Bean, one of the most powerful stories I've ever heard. So that's how the Coffee Bean came about. And there's 5 principles, and I want to present President Pro Temp Kennedy, Lieutenant Governor Jones, and Senator Larry Walker with our culture coin. On the front side of our culture coin is just our mission statement, one team on a mission to greatness. On the back side of our culture coin, there's 5 principles that we live by, being a coffee bean. The secret to life is servant leadership, putting others before myself. Humility, there's a right way to win and a right way to lose. And then the next ring, it's the past is our lesson, our present's our gift, and our future is our motivation. And then the next one is control the controllables. What can you control? What you think, what you say, what you feel, and most importantly, what you do. I stand up here for you today and I preach coffee bean, and if I go out in the community out here and do something crazy, then I don't have any validity. So what you do is very important. And the last thing is you got to exercise mentally, physically, and spiritually. And that's the culture that we built our football program. We won the first state championship in school history 7 years ago. They hadn't won a lot of games, and just being coffee beans and caring about each other, being servant leaders is a big part of why we were the first time to win the state championship at Perry High School. So I want to present this coin to Senator Walker.
Thank you, Coach.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
President Pro Temp.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
And Lieutenant Governor. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank y'all.
All right, if y'all hadn't noticed, there's a few real estate agents out in the hallway today. That's because it's Georgia Realtors Day today. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Resolution 551 by Senator Summers of the 13th. A resolution commending the Georgia Association of Realtors and recognizing February 8, 2024 as Realtor Day at the Dome and for other purposes. Whereas the members of the Georgia Association of Realtors have made the dream of home ownership a reality for millions of Georgia residents. Now therefore be it resolved by the Senate that the following members of this body recommend the Georgia Association of Realtors for its many outstanding contributions on behalf of the citizens of Georgia and recognize February 8, 2024 as Realtor Day at the Dome. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Is there objection to the adoption of the resolution? Chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. I'd like to recognize my senator from the 13th to introduce our special guest. Senator?
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, colleagues. Good morning, everyone. I'm willing to bet you that in this room here, of all 56 senators, somebody in your family is a real estate agent or a realtor. I'm willing to bet you. Somebody knows one, somebody has one. Well, let me tell you, a lot of people become real estate agents, but it's a cut above and it's a new line of professionalism that makes people become realtors. And realtors are the ones who really get out and work the professionalism and take care of you when you're buying and selling. And with today, with the issues that we have with all the stuff that goes on, you need a realtor to buy and sell. Can I get amen? Amen. Well, I'm proud to say I was once a realtor. I don't keep my accreditation up, but I still have my broker's license. I'm proud to be a real estate broker. And I thank you all for what you do, your professionalism. It's an amazing group of people that sell a little bit of Georgia every day. A little bit of Georgia every day. Thank you for what you do. I have with me on stage today, I have your president, Jim Banner. Glad to have Jim. I have your president-elect, Stephen Walker. I have Mikhail Fennell here, and I have my dear friend from South Georgia, from where I'm from, in Cordell, Scott Welchel. I mean, it's amazing. Thank you all for being here. I'd like to let Mr. Jim please come up.
On behalf of the more than 48,000 Georgia realtors, we appreciate you having us here today, and thank you, Senator Summers, for introducing the resolution. Georgia Realtors are the largest trade organization in the state of Georgia. We advocate for our members, private property rights, and home ownership, and we would like to thank everyone here, everyone at the state capitol, for everything that you do for us, your constituents, to establish the American dream and to protect private property rights. Thank you, and God bless you.
There are 1,100 real estate agents from all over the state here today. So, realtors from all over the state here today. So make sure you go out and see them, because we appreciate all the work they do for us here in this state. Thank y'all again for being here. Thank you. Are there any unanimous consents? Or does any senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? We have a few. I recognize Senator from the 32nd.
Thank you, Mr. President. We've got another important group at the Capitol today, and that is the Dental Hygienists Association. Dental Hygienists wave up there. They may have already walked over to the other side, but I wanted to acknowledge the importance of the work that they do, and you've got a little gift from them on your desk today. How do you know when you've brushed your teeth long enough? The answer is 2 minutes, which is how long it takes to hum Happy Birthday twice, although I prefer to hum the chorus from Jolene. The other thing that you can remember for those of us who are seniors is that when you're brushing your teeth, it's a great time for you to work on your balance. So you can stand on one foot while you're brushing your teeth and gradually increase the time on that. So that's a helpful hint from my dental hygienist. Anyway, welcome to the Capitol. Thank you very much. I yield the well.
Thank you, Senator. Recognize the senator from the 10th.
Good morning, to members of this great body. I am excited to recognize some members from the Black Male Educator event that we just recently had here at the Capitol. Myself and my colleague from the 2nd was inducted into their, what I will call, the Black Male Educator Hall of Fame. I am honored to have accepted this award. This is their 5th annual event here at the Capitol. And any time that you can be recognized by distinguished educators is always an honor, because they're the ones who appreciate the work that we do up here in this great Capitol. And I would certainly like for my colleagues here in the General Assembly to join with me in recognizing, thank you, Mr. President, those black male educators that are present up in the gallery, as well as some of the young men with them. And again, thank you all for being here today, and thank you for recognizing some of us in the General Assembly. Thank you, Mr. President, and I yield the well.
Thanks, Senator. What you got? You got the gator there. Oh, you got 2 of them, huh? All right. Recognize the senator from the 8th.
Well, colleagues, we have 2 very special guests from down in my district today. Creature and Charlie are alligators from the Okefenokee Swamp. So y'all tell Creature and Charlie hello today. It's mine and my dear friend from the 3rd's honor to represent the area of the state that encompasses the Okefenokee Swamp. You know, last year we brought in 1 alligator, and I came and I asked Secretary Cook, I said, Mr. Secretary, I said, my folks from back home have an alligator. They want to know, can we bring it into the chamber? And he said, yeah, sure. He said, wait a minute. He said, is it a live alligator? I said, yes, sir. He said, you better talk to the Lieutenant Governor. So the Lieutenant Governor, thank you for being a great sport. We really appreciate that, you allowing Creature and Charlie to be here. Today's Okefenokee Swamp Day. And I have a resolution here that I'd like to read, if y'all don't mind. Whereas the state of Georgia is blessed with the unrivaled beauty of the Okefenokee Swamp, the largest blackwater wetland in North America. And whereas the Okefenokee Swamp is recognized as one of Georgia's 7 natural wonders, a natural area unique not only to the state of Georgia, but also the United States of America and the world. And whereas the Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge is being considered for nomination as an internationally recognized natural area for United Nations World Heritage Site designation, and whereas the Okefenokee Swamp spans 438,000 acres with 93% of it protected as the Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge, including 353,000 acres designated as a national wilderness area by Congress. And whereas Georgia's Stephen C. Foster State Park lies within the Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge and is designated as an international dark sky park, and whereas the Okefenokee Swamp hosts more than 650,000 visits by Americans and international tourists to Georgia on an annual basis, generating upwards of $65 million annually for the economies of Ware, Clinch, and Charlton counties, and creating some 750 swamp tourism-related jobs. And whereas the Okefenokee Wilderness Canoe Trail is part of the National Water Trail System, and anglers and tourists visit repeatedly, seeking a true wilderness experience. And whereas the Okefenokee Swamp has inspired countless Georgia naturalists, artists, and writers, and gave us our very own state opossum, Pogo to possum now. Therefore, I, Brian P. Kemp, Governor of the state of Georgia, do hereby proclaim February 8th as Okefenokee Swamp Day in Georgia. So, friends, thank you for being here. We appreciate the Okefenokee Swamp, what it means to South Georgia, what it means to our state, and indeed what it means to the world. My dear friend, Dr. Clark, is here. Dr. Clark's from Waycross. He's what we call in South Georgia an eye doctor. But Dr. Clark came up for the Ag Committee dinner last night and slept on my couch. And we had a big time. So anyway, thank y'all for being here. Senator, thank you for joining me. And Mr. President, I yield the will.
All right, sounds good. I recognize the senator from the 2nd for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. This morning, colleagues, I know that you see many of the members in the minority party wearing red bandanas, and I just want to share with you why we're wearing red bandanas today. When you look at someone wearing a red bandana, the term that now divides us oftentimes by calling someone a redneck. But this term originated in the early 1900s, a time when mine workers faced the constant threat of death from explosions, cave-ins, and poor working conditions. And this was more likely for an individual to die in a coal mine than they would in World War I. So in 1921, black, white, and immigrant mine workers took up arms to battle the coal companies that controlled and exploited every aspect of their lives. And they would then call themselves the Redneck Army. And so when we talk about the term redneck and what they did, there was a group of black, white, and all nationalities that came together in 1910 and formed the United Mine Workers of America. And they would fight for equality, and they required an oath from every member that they would not discriminate against any fellow member by creed, color, or nationality. And so today we wear our red bandanas around our neck in solidarity with our union brothers and sisters. As a member of Local 256 with the Carpenters Union, I've got CWA union members here. We stand in solidarity with our union brothers and sisters, and so we're donning our red bandanas as rednecks today, and we ask that you support the working men and women of this state by voting no against the unions. And with that, Mr. President, I'll yield the will.
Recognize the senator from the 35th for a point of personal privilege. Senator, you want to do it from your desk?
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to rise. I can't stand right now, but I'd like to announce that tomorrow will be the 3rd annual Rosa Parks Day at the Capitol. Rosa Parks turned 111 this past weekend, and it was ceremonies all over the state of Georgia for Mrs. Parks, and especially in Atlanta the whole weekend. We were supposed to have ours on Monday, but of course, you know, we were out paying our sympathies and condolences to our colleague. So we will be in room 123 tomorrow with breakfast at 8 a.m. Come join in with us. We have many of the celebrities and some of the family of Rosa Parks who will be there too. And we will hope to see you there tomorrow. And don't forget that February 22nd is annual Heritage Day dinner, which is by the Black Caucus. And most of you know that it used to be called the Soul Food dinner, and it's Heritage Dinner. And we will still have soul food, okay? So please join us and be a part of it, because now is the time to redeem the soul of America. Thank you. That is on February 22nd at the Georgia International Convention Center. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Senator. Recognize the senator from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll keep it brief. I think they probably have already left, but we have a group here today from Hall County. We've got the Hall County Chamber of Commerce's Leadership Hall class here today. So there's about 50 Hall Countyans walking around the halls today. They'll be delivering those chicken boxes to you with all the goodies from Hall County businesses. And then also we did have some realtors here from Hall County, and so I wanted to welcome them here as well too. If you're up here from Hall County, stand up, but I think the groups have already walked out. Anyways, thank you. I yield the well, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Recognize the senator from the 1st.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be brief. Good morning. I rise to bring your attention to the invitation on your desk for lunch from GEFA. GEFA is short for the Georgia Environmental Finance Authority. And I want to make sure you knew about the invitation to learn more about this state authority that can help the communities you represent. Lunch is in room 230, the Capitol, from noon to 2. Their executive director, our former Senator Hunter Hill, who used to sit on this front row over here, is their executive director, and he'll be there to share what his authority does. And basically, it's a state federally funded low interest rate loans for public water, wastewater, which has actually helped North Bryan County and the Rivian, not the Rivian, but the Hyundai area, and also solid waste infrastructure, provides funding for energy efficiency, renewable energy products programs, and they also work closely with the communities across the state. Since 1985, GEFA has provided almost $6 billion in funding to more than 2,100 projects that reduce energy consumption, conserve land, provide clean water. Join us for lunch. Thank you very much. I yield the well.
Recognize the senator from the 18th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. It's a bit of a sad time back in my district. I want to share with you this morning. I want to honor the life and legacy of a Crawford County deputy, Timothy Tavares Rivers, who tragically passed away on Tuesday, February the 6th, 2 days ago, from a devastating car crash while he was on duty traveling to assist another one of his fellow officers. Deputy Rivers was not only a beloved resident of Macon-Bibb County, but a devoted fiance and a father of 2 children. Deputy Rivers served with the Crawford County Sheriff's Office for 2 years and was so well-liked and so well-known amongst his community for his commitment to public service and to justice. His dedication to his community was steadfast, and he leaves behind a real legacy of service and contribution to the Crawford County Sheriff's Office. This is a big loss to Sheriff Lewis Walker, the sheriff of that county, and of course all of his brothers and sisters in the Sheriff's Office department there in Crawford. In closing, our deepest thoughts and prayers are with the family and friends and colleagues of Deputy Timothy Tavares Rivers, Senate colleagues, I would ask you to please rise and let's dedicate a moment of silence to the honor and service of Deputy Timothy Rivers.
Doorkeepers, secure the doors, and let's give a moment of silence to the fallen officer.
Thank you, colleagues, and thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Thank you, Senator. Thoughts and prayers go out for the family in Bibb County and our friends down in Roberta, Georgia as well. Senator recognizes, Chair recognizes Senator from the 34th, please.
Members of the Senate, I rise first and foremost to say thank you for your prayers while I was out ill, and for the warm welcome you gave my chaplain for the day on yesterday. She was so overwhelmed, and she thanked you all and asked me to make sure I thanked you all again on her behalf. And if you will, I'd like to acknowledge members of the Clayton Chamber who Senator Davenport and myself have invited in, just a few over here to our right. If you'll raise your hand and let it be known you all are representing our county, Clayton County, and we are so glad to have you in the chamber this morning. Mr. President, with that, I'll yield the well.
Recognize the senator from the 29th.
Thank you, Mr. President. As many of you in here know, for many years I was a single father raising a son and a daughter. I worked a lot of late nights. I say late nights, I would normally get off around 4 a.m. in the morning, go home, grab some rest, get Sarah Elizabeth and Seth up and get them off to school. I checked their homework, I disciplined them, and did everything I thought a father should do. And many times I would have conversations with my son, and he would tell me about relationships that his friends had with their fathers. And on a few occasions, when I was being very strict, he would mention that his friend so-and-so was really good friends with their father. And my comment was always that, son, God put me on this earth to be your father. He didn't put me on this earth to be your best friend. But maybe one day I'll get that added bonus where we will be best friends. But my primary focus when I stand before my Creator is to stand accountable for what kind of father I am. A couple of weeks back, my son Seth, who lives down in Florida, was aware of some health issues in the family, was aware that my father-in-law is fighting cancer right now, and all the other things that come on in our lives. And so I got a phone call from my son, and he told me, he said, Dad, I know you're going through some tough stuff right now. I just want to let you know, if you ever need anybody to talk to, call me. He said, I know how you are, and you tend to try to be independent. He said, but I'm your son, and I'm here for you if you need me. And so I want to recognize today my son, Seth, on his 29th birthday for becoming my best friend. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Recognize the Dean of the Senate, Senator from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be brief. I just wanted to let the people know here, my colleagues in the Senate, I have my red bandana on. I just loaned it to someone briefly. But I just want to let you know that that particular symbol has a personal thing for me because it involves my family. My grandfather, Lewis Parker, worked all of his life in the coal mines in West Virginia. My mother never saw her father until he was on his dying bed. And she would often tell the stories about how she never saw him, but she knew that he was working in the mine. He died of black lung disease as a result of working in the coal mines in West Virginia. So I didn't know the story about the redneck aspect of the red bandana, but it's interesting, and it tied in the legacy of what my mother represented, what my family represented. So I just want to acknowledge those people who paid the price for people today in the union that they represented at that time, the fight they had, and so on. So thank you very much. I just want to mention that, and a salute to my father, grandfather, Lewis Parker, who I never saw in my life. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate that. Does any other senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? All right, the chair here's Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think all y'all will see this as the emails and all go out, but we've actually got a joint higher education and education committee meeting tomorrow afternoon in room 450, 1 to 3, and the superintendent, Richard Woods, has been kind enough to come in and give us an update on why they switched from a single score CCRPI to a multiple score, 4-score CCRPI. They also go give us an update on where they're at as far as implementation of House Bill 538. And then we got the Sandra Deal Center, who we all got a huge amount of respect for, will come in and talk about the universal screeners and how all that stuff works. So I would encourage you, it's from 1 to 3 tomorrow afternoon. There'll be plenty of time for questions, and if we run over, we just run over. Thank you, Mr. President.
Does any other senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? Senator from the 47th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, it's a great day in the Capitol. So today is UGA Day. One of my favorite things from UGA is a strawberry ice cream pie. So I hope that all of my colleagues will join me in some strawberry ice cream pie with UGA downstairs at lunch today. Hope you have a great day, and go Dogs!
Senator from the 28th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today I rise to show that the Senate is the chamber of inclusion. And so for the 8 people here at the Gold Dome today who have not been recognized, I just want to recognize them. So thank y'all for being here.
Does any other senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? All right. A consent calendar of privilege resolutions is before you, sitting on your desk. Is there objection to the adoption of the resolutions on the consent calendar? Chair hears none. The resolution on the consent calendar is adopted. Recognize the senator from the 56 for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent that Senate Bill 417 be withdrawn from the Committee on Judiciary and be committed to the Committee on Public Safety.
The senator from the 66 has asked for unanimous consent that Senate Bill 417 be withdrawn from the Committee of Judiciary and recommitted to Public Safety. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 417, a bill by Senator Alvarez of the 56 and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 82106 of the OCGA relating to reporting of accidents relative to elevators, dumbwaiters, escalators, man lifts, and moving walks, and removal from service of such equipment involved in an accident and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Is there objection to the senator's motion? Senator, would you like to speak on behalf of the bill that you want to move out of a committee? You can't get a hearing into your committee that you can get a hearing? Okay. All right. Without objection, your motion granted. You have before you a consent calendar of local bills. Mr. Secretary, have any objections been filed to any of the bills on the local consent calendar?
Mr. President, no objections been filed.
Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the Committee on the State and Local Governmental Operations, which is favorable to the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Question is on the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar. All those in favor will vote yea, opposed nay. Secretary will unlock the machines. Recognize the senator from the 29th for a motion.
Yes, Mr. President, I ask for unanimous consent to reconsider SR 572 on the Senate consent calendar.
Secretary,
Approve its
read the
resolution.
caption. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 48 and the nays are 0. This bill on the local consent calendar, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Now, I recognize the senator from the 29th for a motion.
Mr. President, I move that SR 572 be sent back to rules.
Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Resolution 572, a resolution by Senator Halpern of the 39th and others, a resolution recognizing and commending the Atlanta Dream and recognizing February 7, 2024 as National Girls and Women in Sports Day and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
I think it's a motion to reconsider. Motion reads, is there objection to the gentleman's motion? There's objection to the motion. Would you like to speak before your motion, Senator, or you waive that? You'll waive? All right. Well, all those in favor of the motion, we're going to vote on this. So all those in favor of the motion will vote yea. All opposed, nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the motion, the yeas are 17 and the nays are 32, and the motion has failed. Mm-hmm. Recognize the senator from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent to remove Senate Bill 26 from the table.
Senator has asked that Senate Bill 26 be removed from the table. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 26, a bill by Senator Dolezal of the 27th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 50 of the OCGA relating to state government, so as to permit hearings and public hearings of development authorities and community improvement districts to be held by teleconference and for other purposes. The Committee of the House on Governmental Affairs recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative LaHood of the 175th District Chairman. The House offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 26. A bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 50 of the OCGA relating to state government so as to authorize the establishment of a statewide electric vehicle manufacturing program for the promotion of electric vehicle and component manufacturing in this state, to provide for purposes of such program, to provide for powers and duties of the department relative to such program, to establish and for other purposes. Senator Tillery of the 19th offers the following Amendment 1 to amend Senate Bill 26 by striking lines 33 through 47 and renumbering accordingly. That completes the order, Mr. President.
All right, the senator from the 26th is asked to have, senator from the 19th is asked to have Senate Bill 26 removed from the table. Is there objection? We have an objection. All those in favor of the senator from the 19th motion will rise, stand, and be counted. All those in favor of the senator from the 19th motion will rise, stand, and be counted. Reverse. All right. No, you got one. Yeah, you got one. On the motion, the yeas are 42 and the nays are 1. So motion prevails. Senator from the 19th, for what purpose you rise?
I rise to make a motion, Mr. President.
What's
I
your motion?
ask for unanimous consent to withdraw my a motion to agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 26, Amendment number 1 and 1A. And then I will, after this is approved by unanimous consent, hopefully, I will be proposing Amendment 2.
So the senator wants to make a motion to amend, to withdraw your motion.
Motion 1 and 1A.
1 and 1A, and then be prepared for another motion.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Is there objection to the senator withdrawing his motion on Senate Bill SB 26, a motion on 1 and 1A? Is there objection? Without objection is withdrawn. Senator, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 26 as amended by Amendment number 2.
All right. Secretary, read the caption.
Senator Tillery of the 19th offers the following amendment to amend the substitute to Senate Bill 26 by deleting 1 on line 33, by deleting lines 43 through 47, by deleting "and" on line 63, by replacing the period on line 65 with semicolon "and", by inserting after line 65 the following. 6. The Commission shall not consider, evaluate, or make recommendations relative to the sale, distribution, or servicing of electric vehicles. By replacing automobile on line 77 with franchise new motor vehicle. By inserting after line 103 the following. G. Neither the Commission nor the Department shall issue any rule or regulation, take any action, or consider, evaluate, or make recommendations relative to the ownership, operation, or control of dealerships by manufacturers and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Recognize the Appropriations Chair to speak to the bill and his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. First, I want to thank you. Last week, Senate Bill 26 came before us. It was a bill that originally had some stuff in it about allowing for the electronic attendance via virtual meeting for things, other meetings that may happen across the state, whether they be boards or commissions. There was an amendment added in the House that did some things we thought that might have some budgetary impacts and potentially blur budget lines. By you helping me on Thursday to table this and give us a little bit more time to work through it, we were able to talk with the governor's staff, have excellent conversations. I want to give again, thank Chief of Staff Lauren Curry and Deputy Chief of Staff Brad Bohannon for working throughout the weekend to make sure we could get language that made all this work well and ease and assuage the fears that I felt and that many of you in this chamber felt as well. That is what Amendment 2 does. It's almost the exact same as Amendments 1 and 1A. We were able to take and tweak it, put it in print, so it's not just my scribbled handwriting. What Amendment 2, which is now proper, does is it strikes B2, which was the provisions of the bill that would allow for contracting by the department across other agencies. And remember, I mentioned to you about on line 46 that after the comma and the other instrumentalities of the state was essentially virtually endless. The governor's office was very, very kind to work with us and take those provisions out. We were also able, I told you that there was concern, a lot of concern in the hallways, a lot of concern that many of you felt about this potentially being some avenue for direct sales that could possibly be an issue in the future. We were able to take the direct sales limitation that applied to the department to apply it to the department and then apply it later to this commission. And we were also able to make sure that line 8 of the amendment was able to include a franchise owner of a new a franchise operator of a new motor vehicle dealership, which I knew something from the senator from the 10th, and I had not spoken about, but I understand mattered across many other fields. I cannot say thank you enough for allowing me the time to work on this. You were extremely kind to do that. I can't say thank you enough to the governor's office for hearing our concerns, working to get them assuaged and figured out. And now I do think this is a bill that we, at least most of us, can support. Hopefully all of us can. And again, it would not have been possible without your help early on. We're now at a place where I think we can send this back to the House in a much better form. Mr. President, if there are no questions, I'll yield the will.
You do have a question, Senator. Senator from the 49th.
Thank you. Quick question. Has any of this gone through a Senate committee?
Yes. There is parts of it, most of it has gone through a Senate committee. It went through Regulated Industries last year. It did not make it across the Senate floor. So if I spoke out and said that it didn't come through a committee last year, that would have been in the heat of battle me misstating that. It did go through Regulated Industries last year. It did not make it through the Rules Committee, but I've spoken with my friend, the senator from the 28th, and I think he feels more comfortable with it now as well.
Thank you.
Recognize the senator from the 10th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Yale?
Yes, sir.
Senator, thank you. And I believe this language that you referenced in SB 26 was negotiated with input from GADA. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And is it also true that GADA is okay and comfortable with this language?
Yes, sir. Again, their concerns were not my beginning concerns, but if we were in the process of fixing that, we were able to do that too. And thank you so much for your help on that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator.
You have no more questions, Senator.
Again, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you allowing us the extra time to work on this, and I'd ask your favorable consideration for SB 26 as amended.
Senators yielded as well. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none, and the previous question is ordered. The question is on the motion to agree to the House substitute of SB 26 as amended by Amendment 2 by the senator from the 19th. All those in favor of this will vote yea. All opposed, nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the passage of the motion, the yeas are 51, the nays are 1, and the Senate has agreed to the House substitute as amended. Recognize Senator from the 19th again.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate immediately transmit Senate Bill 26 to the House.
Senator has made a motion that we immediately transmit to the House. Is there objection? Without objection, the motion prevails. Senator from the 21st, what purpose do you rise?
Unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 20th for business inside the Capitol.
Okay. Without objection, the senator from the 20th is excused. All right, on to the rules calendar. SB 362. Secretary, read the.
Senate Bill 362, a bill by Senator Hodges of the Third and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 50 of the OCGA relating to state government so as to provide for requirements relative to employee representation by a labor organization for employers to receive certain economic development incentives from the state, to provide for definitions and further purposes. The Senate Committee on Insurance and Labor recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Walker of the 20th District Chairman. A minority report has been filed. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Recognize the senator from the 3rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I bring before you today Senate Bill 362 on behalf of Governor Kemp. This bill creates an implied term for prospective economic development incentive agreements that requires, as a condition of eligibility for incentives, for employers to protect their employees' privacy and their choice in the union organization process. By this bill, employers who accept certain state economic development incentives must agree to, number one, they must protect employee privacy and not disseminate employee personal contact information to union organizers without the employee's written consent. And number two, they must allow employees to vote on the issue of union representation in a secret ballot election unless such an option is not available under law or under existing bargaining agreements. The alternative election process for the employer is to voluntarily grant recognition rights based on signed union authorization cards, otherwise known as card check. This process may, and I emphasize the word may, be used by organizers to coerce, intimidate, or harass employees publicly to elect to be recognized by a union, even if some employees may not wish to be recognized in the first place. The bill only applies to companies receiving the defined incentives and only at the facility for which such incentives are given. It only applies to agreements signed after January 1st, 2025. Does not apply to any existing incentive agreements. And it only applies for the duration of the performance period under the incentive agreement. So to be clear on a few things about this bill. One, the bill does not preempt federal law, as the bill does not create any state law cause of action that could conflict with National Labor Relations Board rulings. It only concerns the expenditure of state economic development funds. Furthermore, The bill only targets voluntary actions of companies who agree to accept certain incentives, excuse me, regardless of the outcome of a unionization effort. It does not prohibit a company's employees from unionizing or require an employer to oppose unionization efforts in any action. Employers are free to agree to hold union elections. However, employers only lose eligibility for state incentives if they decide to skip secret ballot election when it's available, or if they choose to disseminate employee personal information without their consent. The bill also does not apply to any union governance matters, such as wages, work days, work hours, etc., as such union governance matters are controlled by federal law. That said, the state of Georgia has a very strong interest in how our state incentives are utilized when we seek to attract employers to locate or expand a facility in the #1 state for business. As such, this bill seeks to protect hardworking Georgians' rights in the unionization effort so that each employee is free to vote in private without fear of coercion, intimidation, or harassment. Mr. President, before I yield for questions, personally, I would imagine some of you are thinking, here's the banker standing before us in his blue suit as a former local Chamber of Commerce board member and a former state Chamber of Commerce board member, and he's bashing unions. Well, you also need to know that I grew up in a union household. My father was a member of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. I had uncles and relatives who were in the pipe fitter unions, machinists, riggers, and teamsters. I understand the union experience. I understand the addition to a lifestyle that union wages make. And if I thought that this bill in any way, shape, or form was injurious to unions or to union members, I would not carry it. So with that, Mr. President, I yield questions.
You do have a few questions, Senator. Senator from 33rd, do you have a question or parliamentary procedure?
Parliamentary procedures.
State your procedure.
Thank you, Mr. President, and the rest of y'all. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 26th for business outside the Capitol.
Without objection, Senator from 26 is excused. Recognize Senator from the 31st.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, yield for a question.
Certainly.
Is it not true that this bill does nothing to require an employer to oppose unionization efforts in any action before the NLRB or require an employer to campaign against any sort of unionization?
That is true, Senator.
Thank you, Senator.
Recognize Senator from 56.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the senator yield?
I will.
Senator, is it not true that this bill does not remove the employer's eligibility if card checks are required by the National Labor Relations Board ruling due to the terms of existing collective bargaining agreements?
That is true.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I recognize Senator from 53rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the senator yield?
I will.
Do you believe that these types of government incentives that this bill talks about picks winners and losers?
I do not.
You do not. So if giving an incentive to one group or another with state tax dollars, does that not, the word incentive inherently mean you're giving advantage to someone, picking winners and losers?
Senator, I believe these incentives create jobs. Thank you.
Recognize Senator from the 9th.
My friend.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator from the 3rd, my friend. We are friends. I like Mike.
I yield.
Oh, sorry. The senator from the 3rd. So I have a question for you. The penalty pathway, and I'm looking at lines 34 and 36. Is it true that or is it not true that the penalty pathway occurs when the union approaches an employer with a card and is signed by a majority of the employees, And if the employer does not promptly file within 2 weeks, leading to no election being held, would it not be true that the employer would be ordered to recognize the union based on the signed cards alone?
I don't understand the senator's question.
Okay. Is it not true if this bill is passed, an employee that misses that 2-week window of election, would this not be considered voluntary recognition if they miss that 2-week period to file for the election being held?
Senator, I believe all this bill does is require, if there's going to be a vote to unionize, that if the option for a secret ballot is legally available, that it be taken.
Okay, is it not
That's
true?
all.
Is it not true though that we are penalizing companies that recognize voluntary recognition? We're taking incentives away from them. Is that not true?
I think what's true is that we are making deals with employers to bring their companies and bring jobs here. They're accepting state incentives, our taxpayer money, and they're agreeing to do certain things, and we're holding them to that.
And would it not be true that we want to kind of prevent maybe some circumstances where a company would lose their voluntary or their incentives because we are passing a bill that prevents them from voluntary recognition?
You're going to have to tell me that one again. Ask me that one again, Senator.
Okay, I'm trying to do this. Is it not true that if we pass legislation that takes away the voluntary recognition, it would have implications on businesses that do it? So,
I'm sorry.
I'm just trying to establish, we want to make sure that there is not some loophole here that would penalize a company, or some certain situations that would penalize a company for not doing,
I think
for accepting
if I
voluntary
understand the
recognition.
senator's question, the way the bill's written is that the recipient of a state incentive would make available secret ballot voting if and only if it's available legally.
I have one more question, then I'm
Okay.
done with you. Is it not true that many companies, they subcontract, it could be as many as 30 subcontractors covering different aspects of a project on a business?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. If that is the case, is it not true if it finds that maybe a subcontractor violates this legislation, would the overall project and business be at fault and have the state funding revoked, or would the contractor be on the hook?
It's my understanding that the contractor, that the employer is responsible for a subcontractor only in that the subcontractor will not provide their employees' personal information to a union without their consent. I think if there's bad faith, bad activity on the basis of a contractor, I may be wrong here, but I don't believe that the thrust of this bill would be to hurt the employer.
Okay. Does the senator yield? I pray this is
I
my
will.
last one.
Thank
So
you.
wouldn't it not be true that if there are some contractors, there could be some confusion in how we're applying this particular legislation?
I don't think so.
Okay. Thank you, Senator.
Appreciate it.
Senator from the 23rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 25th for business inside the Capitol.
Without objection, Senator from the 25th is excused. 13th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, yield.
I will.
Senator, in regards to secret ballots, isn't it true that every time we vote in this great state, we vote a secret ballot?
The senator certainly knows of what he speaks.
Thank you, Senator.
Recognize Senator from the 51st.
With Senator yield?
I will.
Senator, isn't it true that all we're doing here is protecting the privacy of the employee and making sure that their vote is not pressured
either whether they're for unionization or against it. It would protect people regardless of their position on the question. Is that not true?
That is true.
Thank you.
We're protecting their choice and their privacy.
Recognize Senator from the 10th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would Senator yield?
I will.
Senator, I'm just trying to kind of, if you would explain a couple of things and how this particular legislation would work with existing companies that are already unionized, but they are seeking to build new facilities in Georgia, and they choose to transfer some of their unionized employees to these facilities. Would that disqualify them for any of those economic incentives?
No, Senator, I believe this bill is subject to existing labor agreements. If you already have an existing labor agreement, you don't fall under this.
Senator, further yield?
I will.
Would that also apply to any of these contractors or any of the partners that they may use? For example, several companies have joint operations where they get together and build a facility similar to, say, a facility by SK up in Commerce, where there's multiple ownerships from corporations that jointly own that facility. How would that provision, this provision, apply when you have those type of ownerships? One company may be unionized, the other one may not. How would these incentives be impacted?
It's my understanding, Senator, that this bill does not come into play when there is an existing labor agreement, period.
Thank you, Senator. Senator, further yield?
I will.
Senator, I'm not suggesting about any existing labor agreements. I'm suggesting about new operations where multiple companies form joint ventures to open a new operation. How would those relationships be impacted?
Senator, if there's a new facility being built or a new project, there will be discussions with the state regarding incentives that are available, the nature of those incentives, and the conditions under which you get those incentives. There would be a memorandum of understanding established between the parties, and that would part of that memorandum of understanding would dictate the terms of this bill.
Senator, further yield?
I will.
Senator, will that memorandum of understanding supersede this legislation?
No,
and
that
here's the problem.
MOU has to reflect this legislation.
Senator, further years, and I'm just trying to understand, please excuse me if I'm not asking all of the right questions, because there are joint ventures like this that I'm speaking of in this state right now. And I also know that these companies are looking to expand. One may be a domestic corporation, the other may be a foreign corporation, but again, this new entity that they're involved with certainly going to have incentives in building new facilities in our state. We're already doing that. So how would this bill impact this new joint venture with those multiple entities?
Senator,
one may have a labor agreement, the other may not.
Senator, once again, for any new facility, for any new venture, for any request for state incentives, there would be negotiations back and forth between the state economic development people and the folks wanting the incentives. And, you know, whether the deal is a joint venture or whether, you know, what, all of that would come out in the negotiations, and then an MOU would, memorandum of understanding would be established, and it would lay all that out. And the MOU has to follow this legislation.
Senator, further yield?
One more.
Senator, I understand the MOU, but what I'm trying to drill further down is once those establishments and once those procedures and practices and entities are set up, what about those employees? Where one entity may have a unionized shop, another entity, are those employees from both entities as part of this joint venture now allowed to set up a union shop?
Senator, I'm afraid I'm going to have to answer it the same way. All of that would be established, all of that would be discovered, if you will, in the negotiations for the incentives between the companies that are applying for the incentives, whether it's a joint venture or one company or what. And the state Department of Community Affairs and the state economic development people, and all of that would be on the table, all of that would be known, and then the resulting memorandum of understanding would just have to follow this legislation.
Thank you, Senator.
You're welcome. Mr.
Great.
President, I think I'm going to yield. As much as I love the well, I think I'll yield it. Thank you.
Senator from the 14th, would you like to? Recognize Senator from the 14th.
Thank you, Mr. President. There is a dark and terrible secret about human nature, and that is that when you look inside yourself, deep down, in the dark corners of your heart, and the places where nobody talks about, deep down, every single human being has a little voice, and that voice is the senators from the 53rd District. There is a senator from the 53rd inside all of us that counsels us to pursue disarray, collapse, destruction. Thomas Hobbes called this impulse the state of nature, in which life is nasty, brutish, and short, and we are prone to violence to resolve our disputes. However, Thomas Hobbes also said that the first and most fundamental law of nature was to seek peace and follow it. Now, in 1934, you couldn't post somebody's cell phone on the internet, nor could you do a podcast in which you said you had to pick up your rifle because things were falling apart. But Congress, in the year 1935, understood that there was a better way than the constant local disputes that devolved into not just imagined, but real violence, as companies and their employees sought to figure out how to resolve labor disputes without one true way. Everybody had their own way of doing it, and it spun out of control. In 1935, Congress passed the National Labor Relations Act. That federal statute, which has been in effect for almost 100 years, provides two primary pathways to unionization. One, voluntary recognition, and two, secret ballot. The voluntary recognition process is shorter than the secret ballot process, and I'll explain why that's important in just a second. The secret ballot process, while secret, and you can play the fife and beat the drum about secret ballots in American democracy, but in the employer-employee context, it takes on a much different meaning. The secret ballot process, which takes longer, more weeks, more involvement, provides an employer with an opportunity to put their thumb on the scale a little bit more than in the voluntary recognition process. In a voluntary recognition process, what do? You give your card to the group that's organizing, the labor card that's mentioned in the bill. You show your name, you submit it to the employer, and it's not just 50% usually as required by the federal statute. Usually unions are smart enough to wait till they have much greater participation, 70, 80%, so that when the election process starts, when they inevitably lose votes, they never fall below 50%. Why do they lose votes during the election process? Because the employer still owns the means of production. They are still the economic power in the room. And what do? It's called a captive audience meeting. All hands meeting, every employee required to come and listen to all the employer's talking points on why unions are such a bad idea. These inexorable forces that the employer has at its disposal can be deployed with efficacy in every single election. And that's why unions wait till they get to 80%. So a secret ballot that takes weeks gives an employer an opportunity to do a lot of things that amount to intimidation, tactics, which is why voluntary recognition is a super important tool for unions that can get to that level of participation. Now, what do the proponents of this bill say about voluntary recognition? Well, we don't ban voluntary recognition. The majority has offered you two reasons why this bill does not ban voluntary recognition. Both are wrong. The first reason they offer is, well, we don't penalize you. We don't do it. This is just about economic development incentives. We're not telling you not to eat food. We're just telling you that if you eat food, we're going to take away all your income and incentives. That's not punishment. The second argument that the majority makes is, well, all it says in lines 34 through 36 is that you can't do voluntary recognition exclusively on the basis of cards. The majority cannot explain to you how else voluntary recognition happens if not on the basis of cards. Cards are just identifying documents that show that you're willing to sign up for the union. That's all it is. You need it. It's like they're saying, we're not banning food, we're just banning food that you eat through your mouth. I would love for the majority to explain how you can eat food through your ear or your nose in the labor relations context, but they can't. This bill bans voluntary recognition. So let's be clear about what preemption means. We are all very well aware that the state cannot preempt the federal government's laws. There's a little piece of the Constitution called the Supremacy Clause. And what is the Constitution? We say we love the Constitution in here a lot, but what is the Constitution? Let's go back to Hobbes. The Constitution is an alternative to violence, literally. And when the gremlin in each of our hearts that wants to fight our opponents who are outside of our tribe talks about rifles and institutions breaking down, that's the kind of violence that the Constitution itself is designed to prevent the need for. The NLRA is a federal statute almost 100 years old that is the way that Americans in this country, faced with inevitable violent labor disputes, chose to find a peace and follow it. And it has worked as a framework for resolving these disputes for nearly 100 years. What this bill does is says the state of Georgia knows better than this old school, effective federal framework. What we're going to do is say we need to put our thumb on the scales as a matter of economic development incentives and law. State law is going to push the thumb down and say, employers, you better think twice post the effective date of this act about using voluntary recognition. Instead, we're going to funnel you through the much more painful secret ballot process. We're going to take away one of two federally guaranteed options for organization that have served this country well since 1935. So that's illegal, and it will be litigated, and we'll spend a bunch of taxpayer money, but we're not concerned about that in here. The second piece, which is used less often but is also relevant and preempted, lines 37 through 39, yeah, we like consent. We like the idea in the abstract of, well, we don't want employee contact information to be shared without consent, except the NLRA repeatedly requires employers to make personal info of employees available. Why? So yes, that unions can contact them, can know who the employees are, and can have a fighting chance at organizing. The NLRA is a balance. It was never meant to be a one-sided solution or one-size-fits-all. It gives employers the opportunity to weigh in and make their case why there shouldn't be a union, and it gives employees the opportunity to have a fair shake at organizing and demanding the rights that they need within the workplace, the economic power that they need to keep conditions fair and to equalize the balance of inequality in this country. I may have colleagues come up talk about inequality, why unions are so important, but I just came up to talk about the NLRA, a federal statute that we're going to walk over today. We're going to moonwalk over this statute in passing this bill and doing what the governor wants. We will litigate it, and folks, the state of Georgia will lose. But in the meantime, I want y'all to think about how cool it was when Congress in 1935 chose law, order, and peace over the senator from the 53rd inside all of our hearts. Mr. President, I yield the well.
Senator has yielded the well. Recognize the senator from the 22nd. Speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I'll be brief as I stand in opposition to this particular bill. But I want to start off with dispelling the notion, for instance, that Georgia, throughout this, because of this bill, is some kind of way anti-union. That would be incorrect, because poll after poll shows that most persons are actually in favor of the opportunity to actually participate in a union. The opportunity for better wages, better working conditions, the opportunity to know and realize that at the end of the day, business is actually people. There is no such thing as business. A business is made up of people who come together, form bonds, create common goals, whether it's for profit or otherwise. Business is made up of people. And persons are starting to realize that work in itself is a vehicle to live, not just something that you do until you die. And because work is something you do to live, the ability to unionize is important because the union helps you obtain a better life. There are also those who will say that persons who support this bill are anti-union. But that is not true. Because you see, if persons who support this were truly anti-union, then they would find a way to make sure that those who play and participate in professional sports could not unionize. In fact, I dare say that soon college sports will come to us and demand that we figure out a way to make sure that college athletes can unionize, and this body would do exactly that. Whether we carve out some exception or we create some law to make it easier for student athletes to unionize, we will do it. Now, those persons will say, yeah, but those are private organizations and we can't dictate to them. And I would say, oh, really? We can't. All sorts of mental gymnastics will be performed on why we cannot stop those entities from unionizing or make it difficult for them. So all sorts of mental gymnastics would be performed to justify why we allow those persons who, quite frankly, are millionaires or very well-paid student athletes, they get the opportunity with no impediments at all to unionize. And guess what? Those of us who oppose this bill have no issue with those same persons who drive Maybachs and take photos with private jets having the opportunity to unionize. Because at the end of the day, they are workers too. But those who oppose this legislation say, who we really want to look out for is the thousands of Georgians today who would like their company to have the opportunity to unionize. We want the husband and wife today trying to decide if they can afford a new car or move out of their apartment and get into a house, and could do that if they could get a better paying job, possibly through unionization. We want the families today in Georgia that are wrestling with taking a job that might be dangerous, but it pays well, but is a true dilemma because the working conditions are not good. But the opportunity for that job, possibly unionized, would make those working conditions better, and they could take that job. We want the opportunity, those who oppose it, for those families today who can't afford to have medical procedure for themselves or for their children, but if their company had the opportunity to unionize and get better health benefits, they could make those decisions. So those who cast the vote against this bill today are not only, I tell you, pro-union, they are pro all of those folks, regular Georgians. They are pro-you. Thank you, and I yield the well.
Recognize the senator from 53rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. I couldn't be more disappointed with this body. The senator for the 14th to impugn my character, to say that I was one of violence. Mr. President, I've made it very clear in my rhetoric and politics that I never want violence. Do not want violence. That's why we have a legislature, so we can handle issues and our people don't resort to violence. I may be the only senator in this room who has a difference of opinion of both the majority and the minority caucus. What I see in this argument is socialist fighting socialist. You see, my Georgia education, I learned that socialism was when the government controlled the means of production. What does this bill do? It uses taxpayer money. People work hard, they wake up, they pay their taxes. It uses their money to incentivize different forms in the economy. The senator from the 3rd, when I asked him a question, did he say, pick winners and losers? He said, I believe it creates jobs. The big banker. Mr. President, that's socialism. You see, I believe the government has a means of creating jobs too. The ancient Syrians, they spent every tax dollar they had on roads and infrastructure because it built an economy. We've heard of the Romans, the Roman roads. You see, that's infrastructure that builds an economy and creates jobs. But I'm so frustrated. We have butchered the free enterprise system today. To start with Senate Bill, was it 26, with electric vehicles. The majority leader once said, he said, are we sure the people in Northwest Georgia even have electricity? Oh, yeah, we got plenty of electricity. But we don't care if those electric vehicles just coast on through. Because we don't believe you ought to be involved in the free enterprise system to be putting up electric chargers. I don't believe that I should work all day and pay taxes to put up electric charging stations. And my constituents don't believe it either. But they depend on this body to get the job done right. Not to impugn one's character that they want to threaten violence. Senator, you and I, we've known each other for a long time. We came in the House together. And I think principally, you and I align quite similarly on a lot of issues. But what I find so frustrating is when that liberty argument, that free enterprise argument, only comes out on days like today. Because we're upset at our unions. We love our unions, and we're upset that they're not getting the incentives that they deserve. So, I don't want to pick winners and losers today. If you're going to be for liberty and freedom, be for liberty and freedom. Don't just pick and choose winners and losers. And I yield the well, Mr. President.
Senator has yielded. Recognize Senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in solidarity with the working families and labor unions in this great state and against SB 406. As the senator from the 14th explained, this bill explicitly violates the federal law because it dictates how employers should handle certain labor relations. And here's the thing, the lobbyists and the special interests that wrote the bill know that it's likely not to hold up in court. They also know that there are going to be lawsuits over this that is going to suck up taxpayer dollars, and Georgia taxpayers will ultimately be held paying the bill. But they think that they found a loophole. So they want this to be a test case. They want this to go to court because they're hoping that the Supreme Court will allow them to chip away at the National Labor Rights Act. But here's the thing. There's another goal with this bill. It also discourages unions from expanding in the state. It also discourages unions and organizers from holding big business accountable. So then who is the governor trying to protect with this bill? Whose side is the majority actually on? The unfortunate truth is that this bill continues the trend that we have seen of the majority prioritizing big business over the interests of everyday, hardworking Georgians. We have seen that targeting unions is a popular way of prioritizing big business. And that's exactly why the National Labor Rights Act prevents courts from dealing with issues, prevents states from dealing with issues like this. The NLRB specializes in this area, and Congress knew that certain states would try to find ways to put big business ahead of people, which is why bills like this are preempted under federal law. Make no mistake, Democrats want to continue to support our economy and attract business to this state, but we will not do it at the expense of our people and our values. Colleagues, I encourage you to vote no against this bill. Mr. President, I yield the well.
Recognize the senator from 35th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate you allowing me again to speak from my seat. But I rise today as a lifelong union member and a victim of President Reagan's busting of the air traffic controllers union. I lost my job. My late husband lost his job, along with 16,000 plus other air traffic controllers in the nation. And it was all started over the other party across the aisle wanting to bust the union that fought for our rights. So I have the experience to explain union elections today because I don't think that everyone here is on the same page. After leaving FAA, going to the U.S. Postal Service and joining a union there, federal union that I'm still a retired member of, and also the Atlanta Public Schools when I did work there for 11 years. That was a union member. So I have the experience, like I said, to explain union elections today because I don't think everyone here really understands what this bill is asking to do. Union elections are not like our elections in the political elections. So if a group of employees in a company are not being treated fairly, they want to elect a representative to bargain with their employer. They first have to organize before they can even mobilize and do anything to help themselves. So during this phase, union organizers and employees of the company have an open dialogue about their rights to join or not join a union. Employees that want union representation sign union authorization cards, though no one is obligated to do so. So when organizers collect a majority of the authorization cards, they present them to the employer. And from here, the employer has two options: voluntary recognition or petitioning to the NLRB for a secret ballot election. Voluntary recognition is beneficial for unions because it allows the union to begin negotiating immediately. So secret ballot elections may take months to conduct, and employers often use intimidation tactics to prevent their employers from authorizing their unions. Excuse my bad voice, y'all. Currently, employers spend over $400 million per year on union avoidance consultants who specialize in using captive audience meetings to deter union memberships. Employers call these high-paid consultants persuaders, and they play a key role in secret ballot elections. When what amazes me is that the other party, majority party, don't understand why the union reps don't like this bill. They can't understand why a secret ballot election would harm Georgia's workforce. They must not understand how this law works, and they have proposed will work, nor what effect it will have on individual hard-working Georgians who want to and have a right to make their voices heard. So union reps advocate for fair wages and safe working conditions. They make sure that the interests of workers are fairly represented. So this bill rewards business owners who make it more difficult for hard-working Georgians to speak up for themselves. Yes, this bill isn't for hard-working Georgians. You didn't do this for them. It's for the ones who have the governor on speed dial. The first step in union organizing is collecting these union authorization cards. During this phase, union organizers and employees of the company have an open dialogue about their rights to join or not join a union. Employees that want union representation sign union authorization forms, and these organizers collect a majority and give it to the employer. And as I said earlier, that it's the NLRB, which is the National Labor Relations Board, is against this. Voluntary recognition is beneficial for unions because it allows the union to begin negotiating immediately, and secret ballot elections may take months. Through our history, there have been countless examples of employers using captive audience meetings to intimidate employees. And I'm going to end by saying voluntary recognition allows the union to avoid this intimidation and go straight to the negotiating table. So this bill will cost taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees. So please vote no on SB 362. Let's go back to the table and find something that we need to pass. As my grandmother used to say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So what's wrong with the way it's happening now? Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the will.
Senator from the 7th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to Senate Bill 362, a union-busting bill. I grew up in a union household. My father was a member of a union for 3 decades, while my mom bounced from low-wage job to low-wage job. It was my father's union that allowed my family to have stability. Unions are important to me, and they are important to hard-working Georgians. This is a piece of legislation that frankly bewilders me in its priorities and potential repercussions. I just don't understand is a sentiment I find myself repeating as we make legislative decisions that seem to diverge further and further from the needs and welfare of our people. We often hear the mantra of running government like a business, a principle that calls for prudent financial management and strategic foresight. Yet here we are, contemplating a bill that not only contradicts federal law, but also guarantees a lawsuit that will potentially cost us hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in legal fees. What are we doing here? At a time when our governor warns of a recession on the horizon, why are we choosing to engage in legal battles we know we cannot win? Senate Bill 362 is not just an affront to workers' rights. It's a gamble with our state's economic stability and reputation. Let's talk economics. Georgia prides itself on being a hub for businesses and innovation, a claim bolstered by recent strides in attracting the electric vehicle industry and other high-tech sectors. It jeopardizes our efforts to draw in manufacturers and companies critical to the EV supply chain, sectors that are vital for our state's economic stability in the coming decades. These industries rely not just on favorable tax conditions, but on a skilled and content workforce, attributes directly threatened by Senate Bill 362. Senate Bill 362 is a clear violation of federal labor laws, setting us on a collision course with inevitable legal challenges. Is this how we want to spend taxpayer dollars? Fighting losing battles in courtrooms instead of investing in education, healthcare, and infrastructure? The economic implications are stark. Anti-union policies have been shown to correlate with lower median earnings and a less healthy, less educated workforce. This is not the future we want for Georgia. We need to attract quality jobs that offer a pathway to the middle class, not engage in ideological battles that leave our workers and our economy behind. I urge my colleagues to consider the real economic costs of Senate Bill 362, and let us not be swayed by short-sighted politics. Our state's future, our businesses, and our workers deserve better. I stand against this bill, and I stand for the prosperity and the well-being of all Georgians. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Thank you, Senator. I think what we're going to do now at this time, we've got about 8 or 9 other folks wanting to talk on this bill. And I know the Pro Tem has lunch for everyone here. So why don't we just stand at ease for about 30 minutes and let everybody get them a bite to eat. Because I believe the food might get cold if we do all the other ones. 45 minutes is fine. Stand at ease. Was that 1:30? 1:20? All right. Senate stands at ease.